and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. In recent weeks, there's been a lot of chatter about the question of youth politics following the resounding success of the Parlimen Digital initiative. Now, using the hashtag Masa Kita or Our Time, a range of organizations and individuals have weighed in on the question of young people taking a leadership role in national politics. Now, this conversation has grabbed headlines, particularly when former Youth Minister and MUA MP Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman said that he would be forming a youth-led political party. But do we have clarity about what advocates are touting as a new politics for the country? Joining us on the show tonight, we have Nurul Ezzaty Hasbullah from the 111 initiative, which aims to ensure 50% women representation in the Dewan Rakyat. Ezzaty was also recently named in news reports as a possible member of this youth party. And also in the studio with us tonight, Dr. Thanussha Francis Xavier from the Masa Kita movement. She was also the Parit Buntar representative for Parlimen Digital.
Yes,
welcome to
right.
the show. It's good to have you guys here. Now, I want to begin with some news headlines because recently in the news we had comments made by Dr. Mahathir Mohamad saying that he does not believe that a multiracial youth party will be successful. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you agree with him? The fact that this is not an initiative that is likely to be successful in his eyes?
Actually, I believe that right now we're in a very unique political climate. I believe there is this manifestation of a sense of apathy after quite some time within the national community in Malaysia. So I do believe that having a new player in the field, as democracy is a debate of ideas, gives people a sense of invigoration and inspiration to once more be politically engaged. So I do believe that the way forward is perhaps a party that transcends racial lines, transcends religious lines, and I do believe Malaysia is ready for it.
Yeah, and I believe that Tun M, he's a veteran politician and he's entitled to his opinions, but I think the youth should have a chance at least to prove him wrong.
Ezzaty, I want to ask you about the others who have weighed in. Rafida Aziz, because long-time cabinet minister, says that she characterizes this project as yet another form of division, the division being young and old. Is that how you understand what a youth movement would be like, or a youth party, that it would in fact set up these rules of who's included, the young, and who's excluded, the old?
Yeah, that is completely understandable, especially in this current state where things are still developing. However, the way I see it, this is not a youth party, this is a youth-led party. And what it's trying to champion is a new way of thinking, right? It's trying to disrupt current politics. So it's not really about youth in the sense of age per se, but a sense of useful in the sense of the way you think, the kind of ideas you're bringing to the table, the kind of policy issues that's bringing forth to the table.
Could I get you to clarify, Ezzaty, very quickly? What is, for you, the difference between a youth-led party and a youth party?
Yeah, definitely. So a youth party, I think most people would understand it as a party whose membership is only for the youth, that only champions youth issues. But a youth-led party is something different, right? The leadership, perhaps, is still building, right? So I don't know, just say I'll throw a number, like 2/3 has to be youth to represent Malaysia's current demographic. It is mostly youth. So that is what a youth-led party is, and not a youth party. So a youth-led party for Malaysia, it's not a youth-led party for the youth. So that is a very important differentiator, I think, in thinking about what a youth party can do for the nation as a whole.
Thanussha, do you agree? Was that the definition that you're working with?
Yes, definitely. I think, as it says, youth-based means that the party is exclusively for youths, whereas youth-led, you welcome people of all ages, but the opportunities should be available, the platform should be available for youths to express themselves and have a chance to lead the party. It's a youth-led party.
Thanussha, what do you think there's pushback? I mean, I'm not talking just about Dr. M, not just about Rafida Aziz, but perhaps a whole range of people who, on social media at least, have been very vocal about poo-pieing this idea.
About who pioneered this idea?
Yeah, of sort of denigrating it, or saying that it's not particularly wise, or it's silly or delusional. Why do you think there's a pushback?
I think anytime that something new is brought to the table, there's always pushback. But I feel like that's kind of how you know that you're doing something impactful, that people feel threatened that this could bring about change. So I think that is actually a very positive indicator that a youth party could actually bring change about.
Okay, I wanted to ask both of you about how many of us outside, outside the conversation of what's happening with this youth-led party, the media representation of it, the report. So people, the public reading this will only have these news reports, and the headlines have Syed Saddiq, kind of in the front line, right front and center of this initiative of this party. Is that misrepresented? Has the media misrepresented what is perhaps maybe still an ongoing conversation? Is this in fact a Syed Saddiq initiative, a Syed Saddiq-led initiative?
I think it's only natural, given that he was the only youth MP, well, not only youth MP, the youngest youth MP, and the youngest, the youngest youth minister, my bad. So I think that's why the attention automatically shifts to him, because in a way, he was the representation of the voices of the youth. He was the former youth minister. So I think that was the reason why all the attention has been on him. But this is supposed to be a movement and a party of the people, of ordinary people coming up and taking charge. That's the whole concept of a Masa Kita movement, right? It's our time to voice our needs, our concerns, and to take charge.
Ezzaty, what about you? Do you think that the headlines have misrepresented who's leading this initiative?
I do echo what Thanussha has said. I think it is just natural that as of right now, as the party is still developing, that most of the attention has gone to Syed Saddiq, because he is sort of the voice of the youth per se, as his position as an ex-minister and also one of the youngest MP. But however, I totally see that as this story develops over time, that you will see more diverse voices. You will see more people from a lot of different backgrounds representing this party, because I do believe, as the Masa Kita movement has defines itself, it is our time. And I completely agree with what Thanussha has said.
All right, well, there's still so much more to discuss and unpack. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll come back and continue this conversation in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to Consider This. Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me is Sharaad Kuttan. We're speaking tonight to Dr. Thanussha Francis Xavier from the Masa Kita movement, also Nurul, Ezzaty, Hasbullah from the 111 initiative. We're discussing the headlines that have been generated about the youth-led party in the past few weeks. Let's talk a little bit about the conversations. We talked a bit before the break about conversation or the representation in headlines, media representation. What about social media? Is this more than just conversations on social media? Is this more than just hashtags? And who is it reaching, really? Maybe, Ezzaty, you can begin.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the question. I won't discredit conversation on social media as something that's only happening on social media. I feel like we are in a very different age, a very digital age, and things that happen on social media can translate into reality like that. For example, the issue with the lack of SOP with MP, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yep.
That started on social media, and it became a huge thing in real time. So I do believe that right now the conversations that are being had on social media amongst the youth, among the different groups, are like a breeding ground, sort of an idea bank of what they want to see in a youth party and what they want to see for Malaysia moving forward.
Thanussha, you know, if you look at social media and the conversations there, what do you think are the points of contention? Is it around whether it should be a movement or it should be a party? Who should lead it? Whether it should be a left, right, center? These are things that have come up, I know, in the last couple of days around a recent forum that Syed Saddiq attended, organized by Sina Harian. So is that how you see it?
Yeah, I do agree, and I think that's exactly what needs to be happening right now. The disruption of the existing ways of doing politics. Everyone is questioning everything, and we've got a great and awesome conversation going on, and this is how you bring about change. So I actually think like that this is perfect, you know, like let's not hold ourselves back, express what we think, and honestly, it's not even about differing ideologies, because the way it has been in the past is that like, oh, if you're far right and I'm far left, there's no room for discussion. But now everything is, you know, it's up to you, like what do you want to bring to the table.
Personally, what would you like to see, Thanussha? What ideology would you like to see this party represent?
I think the only ideology, in my opinion, that really matters is that it should be a party that represents the voice of the people. And
yeah, but the voice of the people is rather abstract, right? Let's give you an example. One of the things that I know is controversial was a statement made about including P.U. Rahmat in this new party or movement. And this is a man known to have views that seem to be very reminiscent of the mainstream politics, Ketuanan Melayu and such. And then you saw a pushback and say, well, do we really want somebody like this? I mean, surely the issues that you have must have limits. I mean, who do you want to exclude? Let's say, never mind who you want to include, but who would you not have on board in this movement?
Okay, I cannot speak for P.U. Rahmat and his views, but I think that's my point exactly. Like, if we exclude everyone from the get-go, how do we get a conversation going? How, for example, if I were to have a conversation with P.U. Rahmat now, only then can we find a middle ground to our views or discuss how do we move forward. I feel like the traditional way of doing politics is like, oh, if this person does not share my ideology or has a completely extreme view that's different from mine, there's no way that we can find a middle ground to work together. But I feel that perhaps someone like P.U. Rahmat and we can find a middle ground, that the point being that to serve the people, you know? So it's not just about what he thinks and what I think, but it's about how we can work together to serve Malaysia.
And I completely agree with what she's saying as well. On one point on social media, the fact that people are talking is in of itself invigorating and inspiring, because it means that people are engaged in the political process, and that's what we want in a functioning democracy. And on another point, I think the question of is it left, is it right, is it moderate, is a fair question. However, it is an artifact of a political system that's been so polarized after so long. And the fact that we have differences in opinion, in voices within a party is in of itself a manifestation of the kind of disruption that a new youth party with a new ideology, with a new perspective can bring to the political landscape.
Okay, Ezzaty, very interesting, because I think when it comes to the public sphere, the engagements, we do want a broad conversation. The mass media, the mainstream media and social media are all part of that. But when it comes to creating a political party, you need some sort of boundary marks, right? You need to, because you will have to be responsible for the statements made by your representatives. Parties can be a big tent, but they also have limitations, right? So where for you will you draw the line? What exactly might be excluded from this configuration?
Well, that is a fair question as well. I think what's important for the party to really be founded upon is the foundation of this country, which is the Constitution and the Rukun Negara. I think that should be the pillar that's guiding principle for this party, and everything outside of that that can be detrimental to the nation has to be excluded. I completely understand that that is also quite a broad definition as well. But I do believe that we are in a place where that conversation can be had, and that in of itself is also quite exciting. And on a different note as well, I do think that the way forward is to look at issue-specific items. Let's not have like a broad swath, like thick paintbrush kind of like response, right? Let's look at specific policy issues and what are the evidence and what are the data that we have available that can give us the answers to really build the nation up.
Yeah, and on that note, I agree with her, and I think that's exactly why a demand or the voice of a Masa Kita movement or possibly a youth-based party has come about, it's to address these needs. That let's bring the narrative back to the people's needs, the people's concerns, as opposed to traditional politicking.
And both of you don't see that in the current political landscape? That is a gap that you want to fill?
Yes. Please go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Thanussha.
Yeah. Yes, I definitely think that there is a gap. The simplest example would be that we have a raging COVID-19 epidemic going on, but most of the chatter, in fact, seems to be circled around by-elections, and we have Sabah elections coming up, and which political party has the majority right now, or will the government switch at any time? Is there going to be a snap election? That seems to be the conversation that is dominating right now, but it should actually be about this crisis that is affecting everyday people, jobs, virtual learning. There's so much that's going on, but the focus has been on politics because of existing political parties.
Okay, all right, we're going to take another quick break, but let's come back and continue this conversation. Stay tuned to Consider This. Thank you so much for staying with Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris Sharaad Kuttan. We're speaking to Nurul, Ezzaty, Hasbullah from the 111 Initiative, as well as Dr. Thanussha Xavier from the Masa Kita movement. We're discussing the youth-led political party, currently dubbed as Muda Malaysia. Guys, I want to ask you about some of the criticism that's been leveled towards this youth-led party. I've seen comments ranging from this is a very urban-centric conversation, that this is not reaching out to youth outside of the Bangsa bubble, that perhaps it is an elitist conversation, and one that excludes quite a number of young people in Malaysia. How would you respond to those criticisms, Ezzaty?
Thank you for the question. I think that is very fair, considering that things are still in development. So a lot of speculations is in the air. People are just trying to understand what is happening. However, I must say that being part of the group of people who was part of the Rundingan Muda, I saw a huge diversity in the people that was represented there. We had people who was from a farmer from Sabah, an entrepreneur, a lot of NGO people, educators like Cheryl and Fernando. So there is more that we can do, definitely, in getting more voices in terms of how to shape this youth-led party. However, it's something that is being discussed in the groups.
Thanussha, you can jump in this as well. I do think, and I must say personally, I have no problems with Bangsa or the bubble that it might represent. I mean, some of the best values that we have, inclusiveness, cosmopolitanism, an embrace of difference, that actually does come in some sense from the urban elite, right? That has a particular vantage point. But I am concerned about whether that's true throughout the country, and what you would do to address the feelings of sectarianism, the identity politics, the populism we saw through the pandemic, the rising xenophobia. Young people were involved in that as well. So in terms of the political base, your political constituency, obviously not monolithic. How do you start to have a conversation there, Thanussha?
Okay, so like Ezzaty, I was also part of the Rundingan Muda, and I am from Taiping Perak, so I just burst the Bangsa bubble now, I guess. So, we are still in really very, very early days. And we also have to keep in mind that there's been a strong limitation in the SOPs due to COVID-19. So it's not like we can just go on the ground and, do a full-on, rally state by state and everything. We're very much limited right now to what we can do. It's very early days. I don't think that a youth-based party conversation is going to be limited to Twitter or Facebook. Definitely we need to go to the ground, talk to people on the ground, go into the kawasan pedalaman, go into villages, go into farms, listen to everyone. This is our movement. This is about us and our concerns and our views. So I think there's...
Yeah, I understand. Ezzaty, I want to ask you about this very simple fact. And one of the reasons that people think that the youth movement might gain traction is UNDI 18, the lowering of the voting age. Now, as Thanussha mentioned, the talk around snap elections, if it happens too soon, it means that those young people will not be on the register. Then you won't count. If you had any leverage in the current political configurations, it would be because the voting age is lowered and is put in practice, right? What are you guys going to do about that? It seems to be your trump card, but that's not realized in many ways.
I think we are seeing sort of this movement or this party we're starting to create as more of a long-term game, right? So it's not about getting the most seats in this next election. It's not about even getting the most seats even in this next coming election. It is a long-term game. We're not just trying to win seats. We're trying to start a whole new political environment, a new way of thinking about politics, a new way to integrate the youth in making decisions in all these processes. So to answer that, it is more of a larger climate. It is a marathon, not a sprint.
So how would you quantify or how would you define success? Is it that one seat representation? Is it forming government? How would you, using your definition, define success of this party?
That is a very fair question. I think the way I would define success is, in one, definitely in the long term, have some representation, more youth in parliament. That's one. More diversity and inclusion, especially in gender as well. If we could change the political climate in a way that the parliament looks very different from what it looks like today, I think in of itself is a success.
Thanussha, what about the political parties? They already have youth wings. They have mobilized over the last couple of decades young people, brought them into their particular structure. What's going to be the conversation with the political parties?
Yeah, and just to add on to the measure of success, I think we're already achieving minor successes exactly because of the question that you just asked. So even existing political parties are questioning, are we doing enough for our youth? And earlier today, someone told me a joke. Imagine if this youth-based party creates a senior citizens wing. I mean, just hearing that, how degrading and discriminatory that sounds, right? So in that same concept, that's what it feels like to be limited to a youth wing or even a women's wing in existing political parties. So I guess that's like the whole point. Let's break all of these narratives and start something fresh.
Okay, the fresh, very interesting, because there's a lot of, there's a bit of ideology wrapped around the question of young people. Myself, I'm partial to young people. I think they're great. I don't hang out with many of them, though. I must ask you, the glow around young people, that young people are uncorruptible, they are genuine, they really feel for people. Is that true? Will you guys be equally susceptible to the temptations that there are in government, in politics, to be, you know, on one side or the other in exchange for privileges and benefits?
The trappings of, you know, politics in Malaysia.
Yeah, firstly, to start with, okay, we need to go and hang out. Secondly, yes, I think because the very fact that it's something new, it's a new political parties, we don't come in with baggage, so to say. So we can genuinely move forward the way we feel serves the people the best. And I think that kind of also brings a climate of excitement to it because it can take any shape and direction that we feel works best as well. So yeah, definitely.
Ezzaty?
Well, I think my sense of idealism would say that there is a lot of hope, there is a lot of idealism, but my sense of pragmatism means it's leading me to say that it is still a big machinery that has been existing since our independence for so many years. So what that means, that what's important is having systems and structures in place to ensure that there are disciplinary measures, there are sort of checks and balances in place, there are intra-party, sort of, like I mentioned, check and balances. So I think having this discussion is a very important one. And it's definitely something that a new youth party would have to consider moving forward.
Well, Ezzaty, Thanussha, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. We really appreciate you sharing your insights and where you're hoping this youth party will head. Appreciate your time.
I would join the senior citizens wing if you would have me.
Not an insult to you, Sharaad.
Not at all.
Okay, we're gonna thank you so much for watching. It's all the time we have on Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching. Good night.